Up is the background. Yay, we're on third party. Yay. So we're live now?
I think so. Hello, hello.
Hello, world. And
Hello,
hopefully,
YouTube
hopefully
world.
children. Hello, children.
Yes, children, parents, this will be a family-friendly podcast. I'm dressed up as Wonder Woman because I work as a professional children's entertainer, and today I was working as the Wonder Woman character. So I feel like
Wonder
everything going on in
Woman.
the world, it's good to focus on the wonderful things, like children's stories.
Yay, children. Yes, this month is that's the theme for this month is children's stories, which is cool. So a lot of nostalgia, which
Yes.
nostalgia is the things you remember from the past. So if you're a child, you're having no idea what I'm talking about because you have no past,
That's
which is
right.
kind of cool. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes. And if you're an adult, hopefully our reading and discussion will feel nostalgic for you. We're going to be reading and discussing Where the Wild Things Are and some Aesop's Fables.
Yeah.
So
Um,
you can
yeah.
find this story online. And
Kimberly, do you have when you were a kid, were you aware of Aesop's Fables? Is that something that you read?
yes, I read some of them, but definitely not all of them. And I don't really remember them very well. So,
The one that I remember from when I was a kid or when I was younger, and I think about it, it comes up in my head all the time, but it's that empty drum one, but it's differently worded. But it's a guy and he's got a cart, and the cart is being pulled by this donkey, and the donkey is making a lot of racket because it's labored down, it's got a lot of weight on it.
yeah.
And he says, "Donkey, no, no," and the cart is making a racket as well because it's all rickety and old. And the guy says, "Cart, why do you make so much noise when the donkey does all the work?"
Okay.
I just remember that when I was a kid. That's the one I remember. And it was a cute one. But anyway.
I don't remember that one.
Oh, and of course, I always remember because there was a cartoon, I think Looney Tunes or somebody did it. The one with the grasshopper and the ant,
Yeah, I don't
where the one
remember any
animal's
of
lazy.
them. I
You
don't
don't remember
remember
or
any
you
of
know
them.
the story where the animal's lazy and he
No,
doesn't do anything, and
I
the
don't
other one,
remember any of these stories. I remember
oh,
that they exist, but I don't remember any details.
oh, I thought that was like a world famous one, the one where one animal prepares for winter and the other animal doesn't.
Nope, don't
What
remember.
about the hare and the tortoise? Like
Nope,
the
don't remember.
hare and the tortoise? Okay, I thought the hare and the tortoise was because Looney Tunes did that one too.
So, are
But
you talking about like where the tortoise and the hare are trying to win a race?
yeah,
Yes. Okay, so that I do remember.
that's Aesop's. Yeah, that's Aesop's.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I say. So was the grasshopper one where he's planning, or it's the grasshopper and the ant. See, that shows you I don't remember it either. But one animal prepares for winter, and the other animal just doesn't do anything, is lazy, and then he starves or something. I don't know. Sad
Oh.
as that is, but yeah, there's a lot of story, but there's a ton of stories that we have that probably we heard when we were kids that were all based on Aesop's fables. So that's what makes them kind of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I deliberately ha didn't do any of refreshing on Aesop's Fables before this because I wanted to sort of experience them with like a fresh
Yeah,
perspective.
it's
And I
perfect.
haven't. I do wonder if while we start reading them, if some of them start to come back to me because I probably haven't read them since I was a child.
Hmm.
So, uh, so it'll be
And
fun to revisit those.
yes. And if there are any kids listening, I will say directly to you that that's the cool thing about reading stories. Your parents can always help you, or people can always help you understand them a little bit better. But in the end, what the story means to you is what it means.
Mhm.
It is just the way it is. And that's the cool thing about stories. The cool thing about books and whatnot is that you can go on a personal adventure. You can sit in a movie theater and watch a movie, and that's fine, but it takes away from it. But when you're reading a story by yourself, you get the ride on the back of a lion that talks at one point, or you can take a ship that goes into another world. I don't know, you can be a king, a queen, you can do anything you want. It's your imagination, and it's the sky's the limit. And the more you do it, the better it gets, guaranteed. So
Yeah.
definitely. And that's not with movies. You can watch movies and they'll technically get worse. But when you read stuff, as you go through them, your imagination strengthens and you get to a point where it's so much better than all that.
Mhm.
So that's my opinion.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're not going to
Yeah.
be showing any pictures because hopefully,
Perfect.
if you're listening, this will
Mhm.
stimulate your imagination.
Yes. And that's like I say, that's the cool thing is your imagination has no limit. And it's gonna always be better than what other people think up. Don't let people tell you what. But if you want to be as you get older, if that's something I figured out when I was younger, is that if you want to be a real rebel, go into a library because you'll find out everything. Anything you want to know, it's all in there. It's you can ask people questions and that's fine. You can spend your life being told what to do and how to do it. But if you want to do it on your own and you want to know how to do it, go look it up. You'll find real quick how quick that is, how that information is out there. It's very interesting. I don't know. My opinion. My
Absolutely.
opinion.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
You
So
gotta have fun.
would
Mhm.
you like to read Where the Wild Things Are?
I got you. I can do that. No problem with that.
All
And
right.
this story, I remember this story when I was a kid. The kid with the pajamas. I wanted these pajamas when I was a kid. The kid has monster pajamas, if nobody knows. And if you get a chance, this book, if you get a chance to go to the library, which
Mhm.
if you're in Georgia, there's libraries everywhere. There's libraries in every state. They're all
Mhm.
free. You can get a library card, doesn't matter what age you are, in every state. Go to the library, get a library card. Everything you want to know is in the library. Everything.
It's true. You don't have to
Everything.
go online to
No,
look up things. You can
no,
actually
you
go to
don't.
the library, and it's actually better for your eyes to read books as opposed to staring at a screen. Blue light is
Mhm.
actually not so good for your eyes. So I definitely
No.
encourage you all to read the paperback or hardback version of this story.
Yes.
But
And
for
now again,
today, maybe
reading.
you're in your car, maybe you're in your house, and maybe
Mhm.
wherever you are, hopefully you'll enjoy just listening to us read it and then discuss it.
Yes. Yes. And with reading, most things in the world, the newspapers and things that parents read are written at a fifth grade level. So if you read regularly and you become good at that, it will make you better at everything you do.
Mhm.
Everything you do. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. And finding stuff on the internet means nothing compared to being able to go into a library and walk out knowing something. So
Agreed.
definitely find this book because this book is
Mhm.
great. It's a story by Maurice Sendak, and it has beautiful imagery and it's fun. It's a fun story. When I was a kid, like I said, I love the story. I guess it's still popular,
Yeah.
but
All right. So let's get started.
yeah. All right, Where
You
the Wild
can
Things Are
start whenever
by
you're ready.
Story and Pictures by Maurice Sendak. You're going to get denied one of those. Um, all right, let's see. The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind and another. His mother called him Wild Thing, and Max said, "I'll eat you up." So he was sent to bed without eating anything. That very night in Max's room, a forest grew and grew and grew until his ceiling hung with vines, and the walls became the world all around. And an ocean tumbled by a private boat for Max, and he sailed off through night and day. And in and out of weeks and almost over a year to where the wild things are. And when he came to the place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws till Max said, "Be still," and tamed them with the magic trick of staring into all their yellow eyes without blinking once. And they were frightened and called him the most wild thing of all and made him king of all wild things. And now, cried Max, let the wild rumpus start. Uh, Now stop, Max said, and sent the wild things off to bed without their supper. And Max, the king of all wild things, was lonely and wanted to be somewhere loved best of all. Then all around, from far away across the world, he smelled good things to eat. So he gave up being king of where the wild things are. But the wild things cried, "Oh, please don't go. We'll eat you up. We'll love you so." And Max said, "No." The wild things roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye and sailed back over a year and in and out of weeks and through a day and into the night of his very own room where he found his supper waiting for him. And it was still hot. That's it. It's a simple story, but it's cool.
Yay!
Kind of miss out without the images, but definitely, yeah, if you like it, you got to go find the images.
Yeah, I just really love how the story, it speaks to children and how they process emotions. Oftentimes, children use their imagination to process emotions, and he enters this imagination, this world where it allows him to have more emotional control than his real life. So in his imaginary world, he has sort of control over his emotions and he can process them easier than in the real world. And so, I like the themes of escapism and forgiveness and family
So
love.
when you were a kid, because this is what this reminds me of. When you were a kid, did you do the thing where the floor was either lava or an
Yes.
ocean, and you
Yes.
stood on the furniture, and like we
Yeah.
did, the floor was the ocean and the furniture was like a ship, and you're on the furniture and you can't touch the floor, so you have to kind of jump from, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay,
But
yeah,
like
so that's what
pretending
this
like the
reminds me of.
floor is
Totally.
lava.
Yeah. This totally reminds me of that game, which is so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we did the ships, and we would, our beds had the bedposts on them. It didn't have a canopy above it, but we had bedposts, and so we would put a sheet up there to like it was a sail, and we would sit on one bed, and then you jump to the chair because you can't touch the floor. But that's what this whole thing reminds me of.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I also
Yeah.
like how I like the theme of independence. Max kind of wants his independence,
Mhm.
and he is sort of learning how to process his emotions on his own in his imaginary world. But then at the end, he does miss home and he goes back home, which I really love. So I don't know. I just think the themes are really great for children, the themes of this story.
There's a story, I'm looking it up right now. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's a German story. Uh, It Lives in the Woods by Boris Bayek, but
Okay.
I think that's what it's called. I'd have to look it up. It's kind of off the cusp, but when you said that, it made me think about it. But there's a story. I think it's German or it's Swedish, and it's a story about a kid who lives in a kingdom, a castle, and there's a monster that lives in a cage in the basement. And he goes
Okay.
down, and the monster talks to him, and it's like that's his coming of age. He lets the monster out, and the monster takes him away and into the woods, and that's like him getting away and finding his independence, and he eventually becomes independent of the monster.
Yeah.
um, that's the exact story of Peter Pan,
Yeah.
because like when Wendy, which Wendy, the name Wendy comes from Peter Pan. That's a new
Uh-huh.
name. Everybody, when they read that name, it was new, but they all go away on an adventure like this one and like that one. And I think the last line in Peter Pan is that for Wendy, Peter became nothing more than a speck of dust in her toy box
Yeah.
because she outgrew him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with Winnie the Pooh.
Hmm.
Remember Christopher Robin? That's how Winnie the Pooh goes away, is that he outgrows him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So finding your age, that's cool. It's cool and it's sad at the same time. I don't know.
I also really like the part how, she calls him a wild thing,
Mhm.
And it also is sort of a reminder of how sensitive and impressionable children are. And you might call your child something, and it can have a profound effect on their psyche uh,
Mhm.
when they're so young. I remember when I was a kid, and my older sister used to play this game with me where she was only 8 years older than me. So, when I was like really, really young, like 4,
Mhm.
she was only 8 years older than that. So, but sometimes she would play a game where she would pretend that she was two different people. Like, oh, Guinevere's gonna come out, and I'm gonna be Guinevere, this like evil version of myself. And in her mind, it was all fun and games. But I remember as a child, that gave me nightmares. Um,
Wow. That's different.
so, so I do like that part in the story where she just kind of calls him a wild thing, and because of that, he has this whole dream about
Hmm.
wild, where the wild things are, and it stimulates all of this imagination in his subconscious mind. And
Hmm.
it is good to remember how sensitive and impressionable children are,
Hmm.
because everything you say, children's brains are just like little sponges. Everything you
Yeah.
say has such a profound effect on them.
That's
So,
uh that's why I like I read everything he wrote, even the underpublished stuff by Salinger.
mhm.
JD Salinger. Salinger, one of his opinions of children was he said that they were intellectually honest. They didn't have enough
They don't have a filter.
well they didn't have enough ability in them to lie properly. So even if they did lie, it wouldn't come across right. It's
Right.
almost like if you hear somebody that speaks English and English isn't their first language. If they're lying to you, it's very easy to tell because they have to talk around it.
Hmm.
Because their English isn't good enough to cover up the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, children they just don't have enough in them to lie yet, which kind of
Hmm.
makes them cool. Yeah, makes kids are but intellectually honest is because Salinger has the 9 stories, which maybe at some point we should do that. But it's most of the stories involve children.
Hmm.
And he talks about like the children are just children. If you talk to a child and their imagination is in full throttle, they haven't been broken by the world around them just yet.
Yeah.
They sound almost like a Buddhist the way they talk. Everything's existential. Everything's open for interpretation. Whereas a lot of humans, a lot of things are broken down, so they can't
Hmm.
even really imagine things outside of their own world,
Hmm.
outside of their own town.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also feel like this story is just very relatable for kids because everyone can relate to the feeling of like I want to assert my independence for my parents. But when you're really young, you don't necessarily realize how much you do need parental guidance, right? So I like how the story comes full circle. He goes to bed
Mhm.
without eating anything. And it's that imagery of like the warm meal that brings him back.
Yeah.
So that theme of like love and forgiveness is really great.
Mm. And that's like all animals go through a nesting phase. Chickens, when they're on a farm, will you when you first get them, the chicks, you keep them inside of the pen, so to speak, inside of the farmhouse, and you lock them in there so that they learn to nest and learn that that's home. But at some
Mhm.
point, you have to open up the doors and let them out. And
Yeah.
animals will. You'll see animals that will instinctively drag their babies. Cats will drag their kittens home when they try to scurry, but at some point that cat will start to nudge the kitten out because there is a point when you got to go out, you got to try it, you got to try the world.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's it doesn't matter what's going to happen, you got to try it, you got to go out there and sample the world when you're ready. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a cool story. It's a coming of age story for a little kid,
Mhm.
maybe. Yeah. So well, what else? You got anything else for this one? I do
Well,
like the
let's
story a lot.
let's decide if we love it or hate it or somewhere in the middle.
I think I know the answer, but I'm good.
Yes, I do love this story as well. Comment below, let us know if you love it, if you hate it, or you're feeling in the middle.
So here's a question. I didn't look it up, but do you know any other stories by this author? That art style, everything. Do you know any? I don't.
That particular art
I
style?
don't.
No, I don't. Not off the top of my head.
So do you remember the only thing I can reference that's even remotely close? Do you remember the Muppets?
Yeah.
One of the characters on the Muppets, I'm talking about the live action, not the cartoon, not Muppet Babies, but you've seen the Muppets, dun 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 dun, you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
One of the characters on the Muppets was a dude that was, it was like a full-size human, and he had the big mouth on him, and he was a big creature, almost like a scary looking demon
Mhm.
creature that ran around. He wasn't necessarily in a lot of the shows. Do you know which one I'm talking about? He looks like one of the Where the Wild Things Are
Oh,
characters.
he does. Okay.
That's it. You know what I'm talking about? That character?
No, but I can imagine.
But it's yeah, it's that's the only thing I've ever seen that's even remotely close to this. Otherwise, this is a very the whole thing's unique, as
Hmm.
unique as it can get. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't even think of a story that's a story, characters, anything that's related to this. So that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
the
Yeah.
art is very neat. And when we were reading it just now, because I have read the book before and seen the pictures before, um, there were a couple of moments where I was seeing the pictures that the author actually drew, like the illustrator. Uh,
Hmm.
a couple of times I was seeing the pictures from the book, but then there were other times where I actually noticed um, I was visualizing my own imagery, just because it has been so long since I've looked at that book, you know. So that just sort of reminded me of what we were talking about at the beginning, how the value of reading without pictures can really, really stimulate your imagination.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
I, I
Shall we
I
read some?
found oh sorry. I found that character. I was gonna show it to you real quick.
Okay.
His name is Sweetums, by the way. I didn't know that. But he reminds me of a Where the Wild Things Are. If I could get one of those to come up on the full screen. Um, hold on, I got it. Ah, oh, you are terrible. Terrible computer. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
Yeah, you're
This
not going to be
character?
able to project it on our screen,
Oh
but
no, I
I
can't.
can
I
look
don't
up
know.
the picture of Sweetums. I
Look
know
up,
what you're talking about. I remember this character, Sweetums. Yeah, it's
you know
pretty.
that one? That reminds me of Where the Wild Things Are. That's the only thing
Yes,
even remotely close. Um,
I can see the resemblance.
Other than that, I can't think of anything in my life in however old I am. I never, never. But I'll be
I
right back,
mean,
and then we'll do Aesop's. I'll be right back.
okay. Oh, hi, Daniel. You're watching. How are you? Yes, I am doing well. I have been working character gigs all day as Wonder Woman. So I've been around children all day and just taking pictures and entertaining kids and playing games. There was like a special event on behalf of Northside Hospital. We played a lot of cornhole, and it was at this big pickleball place. We played cornhole and a giant like Connect Four board, hula hoop, things like that. So I've been playing with kids all day. Are y'all ready to read some Aesop's Fables?
I'm ready.
All right, so since you read Where the Wild Things, I'll pull up the first Aesop's Fable. So I'm just going to start at the top here of this list I have. And this
You,
is called The Frogs and the Ox.
oh, so you're on a different. I think you're on a different chart than I am.
Yeah, so I'm going to
So
read
long
The
as we don't
Frogs
overlap.
and the Ox.
Heard. Let's hear it.
Okay.
The frog, and the ox. Is that what you are? I'm going to click on it. Are you going to do the traditional one, or are you going to do the modern one? Do you have that option?
I'm reading them from a website called the Library of Congress Aesop Fables.
Okay, I'm going to try to get on the same one as you because I just didn't want to read the same one. If we're going back and forth, I didn't want to double up. The Library of Congress.
Uh-huh. It's read.gov.
Hold on a second. Go. The Library of Congress. and I didn't think anybody in Congress read. Let's see here, and it's Aesop's Fable interactive book. Is that what you're on?
It's literally the first thing that came up when I type in Aesop's Fables on Google. So
Oh, okay. Well, let me do it that way then, because I'm probably going by the wrong way.
it's just read.gov/Aesop.
Hold on, let me catch
Just
up with you.
Google Aesop's Fables, and it should be like one of the first ones that pop up.
Oh, Library of Congress, Aesop's Fables. I got it. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know anybody in Congress could read. The Frog and the Ox. Gotcha. Yeah.
Anybody else
not
watching from home, let us know if you want to read along. Let us know if you're ready. Just stay ready. You ready?
Oh, I'm ready. Are you talking to me? I thought you were talking to them.
I was talking to both of y'all. Okay. All right. So here we go. I'm going to start the frogs and the ox.
Dun, dun, dun.
An ox came down to reedy pool to drink. As he splashed heavily onto the water, he crushed a young frog into the mud. The old frog soon missed the little one and asked his brothers and sisters what had become of him. A great big monster, said one of them, stepped on little brother with one of his huge feet. Big was he, said the frog, puffing herself up. Was he as big as this? Oh, much bigger, they cried. The frog puffed up still more. He could not have been bigger than this, she said. But the little frogs all declared that the monster was much, much bigger. And the old frog kept puffing herself out more and more until, all at once, she burst.
Huh.
That's the fable. What do you think? Do you love it? Do you hate it? In the middle? Thoughts?
I'd say in the middle because I'm having trouble understanding it. But maybe that's the point.
Really? You don't understand it?
I don't know. At the bottom it says "Do not attempt the impossible," but I'm not. I don't know.
Yeah, that's sort of the lesson here is sort of kind of accept your limitations. If you're a frog, be happy that you're a frog instead of trying to be bigger.
Bullfrogs don't sleep.
They don't?
Nope. One of the few animals that don't. Yeah, it's kind of neat, right? They're probably kind of.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. That's. I don't know. I don't know about that story. I'm gonna have to be right here.
I think it's just sort of saying that, like, if instead of wishing you were an ox, just be happy you're a frog. Basically sort of appreciating what you are instead of trying to be something else.
It's odd that an ox is lamented by a frog.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of having like envy or comparing yourself to something that might seem bigger or better, appreciate what you are. I think as people, sometimes we might envy someone if it appears that they have more or that they've succeeded more in some way. Like, I think this is a good story for little boys and sports, or, if someone's like really short and they want to play basketball and they like look at the other players and they think, oh, I wish I was taller. But, that's not really a healthy mentality. So I kind of like it.
Interestingly, imitation is the best form of flattery, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's for the person being imitated. It's the greatest insult for the imitator because they will never be that. So like if I try to imitate you, it flatters you that I'm trying to be like you, but it's an insult to me because I will never be that. Yeah. That's interesting, right? It's I don't know. I always thought that was kind of a weird, people always just say the first part, they don't say the second part. Anyway, so that's all I got. Yeah.
Do you want to read the next one?
Yeah, I got a different list, but I don't think we're gonna double up that way because I've got your list up as well. Well, I thought I did. All right, let's see. Let me put your list up at the same time so I don't double up on you. Um,
So the next one for me is The Belly and the Cat, or Belling the Cat. So I can read
mine,
that one, or you can read it. It's up to you.
I got the one I got on that other list. The one from UMass is the Ant and the Grasshopper, which is really popular. That's what I was asking about. If you ever heard of it, I think when I read it, I think you'd know what I'm talking about. Like you'll know that story because it's like a real famous kid story.
Sure, yeah,
Um,
you can read that one.
I got you. I don't think we'll double down. I got your list up next to it, so we won't. I just don't want to read the same ones again. But maybe the people in the chat would stop us. The Ant and the Grasshopper. This is the traditional one. In a field, one summer's day, a grasshopper was hopping about, chirping and singing to his heart's content. An ant passed by, bearing along with great toil an ear of corn he was taking to the nest. Why not come and chat with me? Said the grasshopper, instead of toiling and moiling in that way. I am helping to lay up food for the winter, said the ant, and recommend you do the same. Why bother about winter? Said the grasshopper. We have got plenty of food at present. But the ant went on its way and continued its toil. When the winter came, the grasshopper found itself dying of hunger, while it saw the ants distributing every day corn and grain from the stores they had collected the summer. That's it.
I like it. I feel like it's just sort of a cautionary tale about um finding a balance between, yes, live in the moment, but you have to plan for the future.
Do
So
you remember any cartoons when you were kids that made like a thing about that one? Do you remember? I remember that one a lot. Like Looney Tunes, kind of doing the ant being busy and the grasshopper being lazy. I
no,
remember.
I don't remember any cartoons about it.
Okay. That's one of those that really stuck with me. That's oh shit, I remember that one. I remember that one. Yeah. So,
Yeah. It's a good one though. I feel like it's got a good moral. It teaches the importance of discipline, and you can't just expect life to give you instant gratification.
mhm,
Sometimes things take work and
mhm.
preparation and planning. So I think it's a good moral. Do we
And
love it? Do we
sometimes
hate it? Or somewhere in the middle?
I like it. I like
Yeah,
it.
I like
And,
it too.
and sometimes that's the work itself is its own reward. Just because if somebody does a task and no one else comes along and pats you on the back, the work itself is the reward. The idea that you can take a step back and take pride in something that you did, that's the reward. It
Yeah,
doesn't, you don't have to have somebody come along and congratulate you. Sometimes just having that personal victory or that personal win, that's part of it.
right,
So, yeah,
exactly. You don't need
I like
other people to validate it.
no, if you need someone else to tell you, then it may not have been the best pursuit. What you got?
Okay, so the next one is Belling the Cat. Belling the Cat. Here we go.
Let's have
The
it.
mice once called a meeting to decide on a plan to free themselves of their enemy, the cat. At least they wished to find some way of knowing when she was coming, so they might have time to run away. Indeed, something had to be done, for they lived in such constant fear of her claws that they hardly dared stir from their dens by night or day. Many plans were discussed, but none of them was thought good enough. At last, a very young mouse got up and said, I have a plan that seems very simple, but I know it will be successful. All we have to do is to hang a bell about the cat's neck. When we hear the bell ringing, we will know immediately that our enemy is coming. All the mice were surprised that they had not thought of such a plan before. But in the midst of the rejoicing over their good fortune, an old mouse arose and said, I will say that the plan of the young mouse is very good. But let me ask one question. Who will bell the cat? So I think that
Oh,
one's kind of funny because it's sort of saying, it's um, some things are easier said than done. Even though you might have a good plan, thinking about how you're going to realistically execute it is something
Mhm.
different.
Hmm.
I like that
No,
a
that was
lot,
good.
actually, because I often, just thinking of parallels in my own life, I often will talk to writers and people in the film industry, artists that are always talking about, oh, I want to make this movie and that movie. And then my next question is okay, how are you going to raise the funds? Like, yeah,
Best laid plans, right?
in theory, it's a great idea, but how are you going to like, are you thinking about how you're going to practically produce this? So that's sort of the way I can relate to it.
This it's a bit odd, but I did look it up just so I'd have the exact term. Do you know what Toxoplasma gondol is?
No.
A parasite in cat feces can cause mice to lose their fear of cats and become
Oh,
sexually attracted to their urine. This is because the parasite can alter the brain's fear and arousal pathways, making it easier for cats to catch infected mice. The behavioral can change. The behavioral change can be permanent even after the parasite is no longer detectable in the brain.
weird.
Cat urine, cat feces attracts mice. Isn't
Weird.
that cool? That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How the heck did that happen? Yeah.
That's
But
really
anyway,
bizarre. That's interesting though.
yeah, I remember hearing about that when I was younger, but that's a really cool. But when you were talking about this the whole time I was thinking about that. I was like, what is the name of that parasite? But yeah, anyway.
Do
Let me
we
see.
love this one? Do we hate this one? Somewhere in the
I'll
middle?
take it. I'll
I
take it.
love it.
I like mice noodling around.
Yeah.
So
All right. You want to read the next one?
I got hurt. I'm on that other sheet. Are you okay with me staying on that one?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. The donkey and the lapdog.
Okay.
Um, dun dun dun. Hold on. Shoot. Scratch that. I think. Oh, well, my internet's killing me.
Okay. I can read the next one.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. So
I think I'm going to stay on yours.
the next one I have is the town mouse and the country mouse.
Oh yeah.
A town mouse once visited a relative who lived in the country. For lunch, the country mouse served wheat, stalks, roots, and acorns, with a dash of cold water for drink. The town mouse ate very sparingly, nibbling a little of this and a little of that, and by her manner making it very plain that she ate the simple food, only to be polite. After the meal, the friends had a long talk, or rather, the town mouse talked about her life in the city, while the country mouse just listened. They then went to bed in a cozy nest in the hedgerow and slept in quiet and comfort until morning. In her sleep, the country mouse dreamed she was a town mouse, with all the luxuries and delights of the city life that her friend had described to her. So the next day, when the town mouse asked the country mouse to go home with her to the city, she gladly said yes. And when they reached the mansion in which the town mouse lived, they found on the table in the dining room the leavings of a very fine banquet. There were sweetmeats and jellies, pastries, delicious cheeses, indeed, the most tempting foods that a mouse can imagine. But just as the country mouse was about to nibble a dainty bit of pastry, she heard a cat mew loudly and scratch the door. In great fear, the mice scurried to a hiding place where they lay quite still for a long time, hardly daring to breathe. When at last they ventured back to the feast, the door opened suddenly, and in came the servants to clear the table, followed by the house dog. The country mouse stopped in the town mouse's den only long enough to pick up her carpet bag and umbrella. You may have luxuries and dainties that I have not, she said as she hurried away. But I prefer my plain food and simple life in the country with the peace and security that go with it. So perhaps poverty with security is better than plenty in the midst of fear and uncertainty. So I guess this is sort of a grass is always greener kind of tale. It kind of reminds me of the other Aesop's fable we read about envy and comparison and to appreciate what you have instead of wishing that something else was, wishing that your neighbor or your friend, um,
Mhm.
you could have their life instead of yours, appreciating your life instead of being envious kind of thing. I like the lesson. What do you
I
think?
like it. I think that they use the term carpetbag, which that's actually a term for a city person, not a country person. So that's actually the wrong term to use. Because carpetbag, the original term carpetbaggers is are people that were from the north that would come to the south to the country in order to elicit votes from black people when they got a third of the vote post Civil War. So
Hmm.
they use that term wrong there.
Oh,
She wouldn't
weird.
have. Yeah, but I don't know. It's fine. But otherwise, it's a good story. It's cute. Yeah, it's easier to eat the plain things, but you can enjoy them instead of having to scurry about and not necessarily get those things. So yeah, definitely, it's a good story. I like it. Yep. So yeah.
Yeah, also, it says in a general sense, the term carpet bag can refer to a large, old-fashioned travel bag, often evoking an image of vintage or antique style.
No, I got you. I'm saying that it's like the term carpetbagger is synonymous for people that are from the
Yeah.
city coming down to exploit people from the country, but they're using it in the opposite, where a person in the country is going into the city. I'm just saying it wouldn't. This story is older than that term, so if they grabbed it on the way through, they grabbed it and used it the wrong way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it says here,
Carpetbaggers? Did you see that in there?
carpetbaggers historically were known as northern individuals who moved to the southern United States after the Civil War during the
Yeah.
Reconstruction period. These carpetbaggers were often seen as opportunists, coming to the
Mhm.
South to take advantage of economic and political opportunities in the region. The term carpetbagger eventually took on a negative connotation, implying an outsider exploiting a situation for personal gain. But as you
But you
said,
see how yeah.
this story is older than that term.
No,
So I don't
that's
think
what I'm
that's,
saying is that
yeah.
that's what I'm saying is that if they grabbed the term to if obviously the story's been changed a little bit to make it fit modern day, but I'm saying somewhere along the way they grabbed a term and they used it the opposite way that it would have been more appropriate to have used. Like if you use that term, if you read that story and that's the only knowledge you had of the word carpetbagger, it would seem like a country person going into the city. Whereas just like you read, it's more a person from the city going to the country. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? I
Yeah.
know it's
So
I
do
don't
we
sound
love
I don't want
this?
I'm not trying to sound like a pettifogger, but anyway,
Do we love
I like the term carpetbaggers a lot. I think it's very interesting. Yes, I
I
like
think
it.
it's interesting too. Do we love it? Do we hate it? Is it in the
Yes.
middle? Okay, cool. Do you want to read the next one?
Is that the fox and the grapes? Because I'm
Yeah.
trying to get on your page. Okay, yeah, I'll read this one. Yeah. Anyway, so here we go. The fox and the grapes. A fox one day spied a beautiful bunch of ripe grapes hanging from a vine trained along the branches of a tree. The grapes seemed ready to burst with juice, and the fox's mouth watered as he gazed longingly at them. The bunch hung from a high branch, and the fox had to jump for it. The first time he jumped, he missed it by a long way. So he walked off a distance and took a running leap at it, only to fall short once more. Again and again he tried, but in vain. Now he sat down and looked at the grapes in disgust. What a fool I am, he said. Here I am wearing myself out to get a bunch of sour grapes that are not worth gaping for. And he walked very, very scornfully, walked off very, very scornfully.
I
Hmm.
like
You like that one?
I feel like a lot of people it sort of reflects what a lot of people do. Like if they can't quite achieve something, they'll write it off as, oh, I didn't need that anyway. Or if there's something that's just out of their reach, or even something they don't quite understand. Like if they don't understand it, it's easier just to tell themselves, oh, I don't need to understand that anyway, or I don't need that thing anyway. Um, which might not necessarily be fair. So I like that one.
I got from um that the grapes are sour because they're not all the way ripe yet. And that if he walked away and waited it out, the grapes would ripen to their sweetest because they're the blackest. They got to sweeten completely, and then they would fall from the vine.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I got from it. That he's just
Yeah.
going to wait it out.
Yeah, maybe if he was just patient and waited it out, then they would just fall.
I
That's
don't know.
fair.
I mean, I don't know if that's not what this little maxim at the bottom tells me, but
Well, I feel like
um,
all of these stories, like any story, it's open to interpretation, and
sure.
everyone's going to interpret them a little differently, which is why they're interesting to talk about. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes, no doubt. And that's the cool thing about them is, yeah, you there's nothing wrong with having a opinion that's different or unique compared to others. It would be best though if you could at least explain that opinion. You can't just pull it out of the ether. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't know. That's what I got from it, but it's still I like it though.
Yeah. So we love it, hate it in the middle.
I'll take it.
Cool. So my computer, unfortunately, is going to do an automatic update in a few minutes.
You want me to read the next one?
I think I can do one more before that happens. So
Is that going to cut you off from this?
yes. So this
Oh,
is called The Wolf and the Crane. A wolf had been feasting too greedily, and a bone had stuck crosswise in his throat. He could get it neither up nor down, and of course he could not eat a thing. Naturally, that was an awful state of affairs for a greedy wolf. So away he hurried to the crane. He was sure that she, with her long neck and bill, would easily be able to reach the bone and pull it out. I will reward you very handsomely, said the wolf, if you pull that bone out for me. The crane, as you can imagine, was very uneasy about putting her head in a wolf's throat. But she was grasping in nature, so she did what the wolf asked her to do. When the wolf felt that the bone was gone, he started to walk away. But what about my reward? Called the crane anxiously. What? Snarled the wolf, whirling around. Haven't you got it? Isn't it enough that I let you take your head out of my mouth without snapping it off? Hmm.
that's interesting.
Expect no reward for serving the wicked. Wicked. Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't I'm trying to think if I agree with the maxim, expect no reward for serving the wicked. Um it's that it's that no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. This one reminds me, the one with this is an Aesop's fable too, if I'm not mistaken. The lion with the thorn in his paw and the
I
mouse comes
I
and
don't
takes it out.
remember that one, but
Oh, that's an old one too. The lion has a thorn in his paw and he can't get it out, and then the mouse comes and takes it out for him.
yeah.
Um, it has that exact same feel.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about this one?
I don't love this one, but I don't hate it either. I'm kind of in the middle with this one.
Do you know I think it's an alligator that will lie on the open land and he keeps his mouth open, and a bird will actually come and sit there and eat lichens and parasites off his tongue.
Hmm.
And he doesn't snap its head off because he knows that animal is helping him, so to speak.
Hmm.
A humanistic type way of looking at it. But the alligator won't kill it. Because that seems like that's where this story's coming from, that type of thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
Anyway, hey, you said you're. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it's sort of like suggesting if like if a being that's considered dangerous asks you for help, like you shouldn't help them. I don't know. I feel like the meaning of this one can get a little muddled. That's why it's not one of the ones I just love.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't. I do think I agree with you. It does feel like it's kind of teaching a lesson that
don't
it sounds
trust
like
the
it's
wolf.
well, no, it's like I said, kind of teaches like it's teaching a lesson that um you don't want to help bad people. But I don't think that's fair. I was talking to someone the other day, and they knew somebody that had an opinion that was different than them, and they were saying that they're crazy and all. They were saying they're a bad person and crazy. And I said, what if they're crazy? Then you have to help them. You'd want to help them more. And if they're a bad person and you think they're bad, you can't just do away with them, or they'll always be there and they'll always be bad. So you're supposed to, if you think someone's wrong or you think someone's misguided or bad or what have you, to just leave them away. They're just going to go away and they'll always be there. But if you're supposed to help them more. That's the person you're supposed to help the most, right? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think just dismissing that person is the right way to do it.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. I think that's why I don't really love this fable as much as some of the others. Hi, Mopar, how are you? Scorpio getting right in the back of the frog to get over the river. Yeah, I think that story sounds familiar too.
How do you know that story, but you didn't know the wolf or the lion with the thorn in his paw, or the
I
ant
can't
and the
help what I remember
grasshopper?
from childhood.
Hey, so you said your computer's going to reset. Does that mean you're going to cut off this podcast? Is that right?
It's possible, but we can keep going until that happens. I'm trying to fix the sometimes the camera.
My computer, it asked me if I want to update, but I guess they're just getting more and more insistent, those computers. So what do you think about this one? Are you going to love it or hate it?
Well, as I said, I'm kind of in the middle with this one.
I'll take a hate because I don't think it's. I understand that. I understand the idea that you want to crush your enemies, but I don't think you should take pleasure in that, and I don't think you should teach it as a moral.
Yeah,
I think it's something you have to do. If you have to do it, then you shouldn't be happy about that. It's like if we go to war and someone goes to kill people. It's not something you're supposed to be happy about. You just have to do it.
Right.
So you shouldn't take pride. There's no pride or pleasure in that. Otherwise, you're not a good person.
Yeah.
It's the last option you have.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. Hey, the Lion and the Mouse. I think that's the one I was just telling you about.
Yeah.
Oh no, it might be a little different.
Do you want to read another one?
Yeah, that's the next one, The Lion and the Mouse. I was going to read it.
Oh, that's the one. Okay, here we go.
I think it's a different story, but I think it's the exact same vein as what I was talking about.
Yes.
So
actually, do you want to be the lion and I'll be the mouse?
If you like, sure, Wonder Woman. I got you. Mm-hmm.
So Mopar, if you want to follow along, just Google Aesop's Fables, The Lion and the Mouse.
If you want, while I'm actually on the computer, I can add. I think it'll let me add it into the chat because I see the chat's running right now. Mm-hmm. There it is. I think that's right. Tell me if that's the right way to do it.
I think that's it.
Okay.
All right. So if you want to start it.
So I'm going to read the line and I'm also going to read the exposition, correct?
Either way. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just read the mouse. Yeah.
Okay. A lion lay asleep in the forest, his great head resting on his paws. A timid little mouse came upon him unexpectedly, and in her fright and haste to get away, ran across the lion's nose. Roused from his nap, the lion laid his huge paw angrily on the tiny creature to kill her. That's you, Wonder Woman.
Spare me, begged the poor mouse. Please let me go, and someday I will surely repay you.
The lion was much amused to think that a mouse could ever help him, but he was generous and finally let the mouse go. Some days later, while stalking his prey in the forest, the lion was caught in the toils of a hunter's net. Unable to free himself, he filled the forest with his angry roaring. The mouse knew the voice and quickly found the lion struggling in the net. Running to one of the great ropes that bound him, she gnawed it until it parted, and soon the lion was free.
You laughed when I said I would repay you, said the mouse. Now you see that even a mouse can help a lion. I think I like that one the best, actually, because it sort of suggests, if you are kind, kindness will come back to you, like karma. I like that one.
So how is this story seems like it's in the exact same vein as the one we just read, but the one we just read was saying, oh, if you do something for somebody, don't expect anything from it. And then this one, you do something and it's like, oh, that's a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Like both of them were a smaller animal or a weaker animal helping a stronger animal. But the
Mhm.
first one was saying, "Oh, don't expect anything. They're jerks." And then this one
Mhm.
says, "Oh, you you want to be kind." You know what I'm saying?
Well,
You get me? Yeah.
the difference is though, the stronger animal in this one, the stronger animal helped the weaker animal first in this one.
All right. All right. A
Because
turnabout kind of thing.
the laws of nature are the stronger animal has the power to overpower the weaker one, right? But the stronger animal chose to help the weaker animal out of kindness. And in doing so, the mouse offered to reciprocate. Now, the story beforehand, it was the weaker animal just helping the stronger animal without so I think that was the difference. The difference is like it started with the weaker
One didn't
animal
have the
helping the
turnabout
stronger.
kind of thing.
What?
One didn't have the turnabout,
Yeah.
but the other one did. I don't know. It still feel like I mean you shouldn't necessarily feel like to help somebody else that you have to have been paid a debt, or that wouldn't change it. You know what I mean? If I'm going to help somebody that's stronger than me, whether or not they had helped me in the past shouldn't change anything. If you're going to be a good person, you're going to try to help somebody. Um, it is what it is. It has nothing to do with the past relationship. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, if
Well, I like
yeah,
this one because it
I
sort
do
of
like it though. It's a
suggests
great story.
it just suggests like sort of like the laws of nature. Like if typically if you're nice to someone, oftentimes that is reciprocated.
Hmm.
But I see what you're saying, that it's sort of like the opposite message of the one right before it.
Hmm.
Because the one right before it is saying you have to be careful, you can't trust, you don't want to be taken advantage of, right?
Hmm.
Because there's a balance. You don't want to be so nice to someone who's not actually gonna reciprocate it,
Yeah,
right?
but I don't think that I don't think these are the laws of nature. I will say that because the laws of nature say that the bigger animal would kill the smaller one every day of the week. All of these characters are humanized because they're
Mhm.
speaking like humans and they're engaging in behaviors that humans that we're these stories are using lesser animals as characters in a
Yes, they're
play that's
metaphors. Yeah,
yeah,
they're
yes,
metaphors
yes.
for people. Yeah.
Yes,
When
yes,
I said
yes.
the
It
laws
is
of
good.
nature, I
Yeah.
didn't mean like the scientific laws of nature. I just meant like it's usually like the natural way between human beings because the animals
Yes.
are symbols of human beings. So typically, if you're nice to a human, that human will be nice back, unless they're just an evil human. So maybe you should be selective about who you're nice to so you don't get taken advantage of. So I think in that sense, the stories are kind of related.
I got you. I think that that's the thing about humans that separates us from these animals is that we have that reasoning skill and that we
Yeah.
can reason that I will help you because I know that I will have help in the future as a result. That sounds terrible. I do think that's how people think. But that's the thing that separates us from the beasts, so to speak. I don't know. But I'm also very pragmatic. I think people are driven by pity and self-interest. That's it. That's the only things that drive people in the world is pity and self-interest. I mean, that's humans. But we still are above these animals. It's cute that we use lesser animals to explain these points. Um,
Mopa
because
says,
yeah, yeah.
speaking of killing on war, Red Baron fighter Ace of the World War One said, "We are knights in the sky. We don't kill other people on purpose or have that as our main objective."
Good.
Interesting.
I
I like
ask.
that.
So who is this? You said this. I see Sphenia, but you're saying a different name. What do you
Yeah,
say?
that's just the name. That's just the name.
But I
Um,
mean, you're calling him something else. What are you calling him?
that's the name, Mopar.
Okay, Mopar. But I'm saying, it does Mopar know there's an episode? This is very off topic, but
Yeah.
when he says this, people find him sky, bomb people from the sky. There's an episode of MASH that's really old, and there's a guy who comes on the show and he's crazy and he thinks he's Jesus Christ, and it turns out that he was a bomber. and he was bombing people from the sky, and he felt really bad about it. So he got this delusion that he was Jesus Christ to get away from that, because otherwise it was going to destroy him. Does he know? Does he know that episode? It's a beautiful episode, but it's
I don't
somebody
know,
the same
Mopar,
level.
let us know. Do you know that episode?
Anyway, because he said that, it makes me think of that. Because the same thing, that level of indifference of hitting a red button and terminating tons of people is an odd thing. Um, let's see. How close are you to your reset?
Well, I say we just keep going, and then, I just wanted to warn you that if something happens, it's not deliberate.
Are you
So
going to come back on after that, or are you going to stop at that point?
we'll just play it by ear.
Yeah. Do
But
you want me to read the
anyway,
next one?
Mopar, let us know what you think about that. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead and go to the next one. So this
I
one's
said, oh,
called
well, sidetracking. I get a kick out of that.
Oh.
He hasn't seen MASH series. You got to watch that.
Oh,
MASH
you
is
haven't seen
it's
MASH. Okay.
it's great. Have you seen that, Kimberly? Do you know
No,
MASH?
I haven't.
It's based on Catch 22, which was a book that seemingly the book is in no way related to MASH, but the whole series is based on that. And it was a really good series about anti-war series up until Alan Alda got behind the camera, because Alan Alda ended up making himself the main character. And it's up until then, it was a really fun series. It was fun and playful. But the series ran, I think, twice as long as the actual war they were portraying, which was the Korean War. But anyway, when I was a kid, I watched that show a lot. Anyway,
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard of it. I've just never had the
there
time
was a
to.
movie as well, and the movie was more closely based on Catch 22, but the series definitely not. But anyway, do
So
you
I
want me to
think
read the next
because
one?
we've been reading animals, I think the next one I'm going to read is The Plane Tree.
Are
So
you going
it's
to
the
read
next,
it or mine? You want to read it?
well, you read the last one, so I'll read this one.
I think you read the last one.
No, you read it. I was just the mouse voice.
Oh, heard. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
So this is The Plane Tree. Two travelers walking in the noonday sun sought the shade of a wide-spreading tree to rest. As they lay looking up among the pleasant leaves, they saw that it was a plane tree. How useless is the plane, said one of them. It bears no fruit whatever, and only serves to litter the ground with leaves. Ungrateful creatures, said a voice from the plane tree. You lie here in my cooling shade, and yet you say I am useless. Thus, ungratefully, O Jupiter, do men receive their blessings. So I really love this one because I feel like it's very relevant. It's easy to take for granted all the things that we should be grateful for. Everyone's freaking out over the election, and no one has ever, the people who are upset that the election didn't turn out the way they wanted. It's easy to be upset about that stuff, but you could also just be grateful that you have a president, and be grateful that you're living in a country where you have a president at all. You know what I
You
mean? Or just be grateful to be alive.
be
You know,
glad
be
that you
grateful to
live
have a
in
house
in a
if you have one. There's always things you can be grateful for. So I just think this is like a really good lesson. So I love
be,
this.
be glad that you live in an elective democracy, which
Yeah.
means that you will likely get upset once in a while, because it's not always going to go the way you want, but that's what the majority wants.
Mm-hmm.
So the majority wants it, then that's what you're supposed to get.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the majority wants. If it had been the other way about, then that would be the majority. So
I also like the part of the story that talks about, oh, you just litter the ground with leaves. And it sort of makes me think of that quote, like, well, one person's trash is another person's treasure.
Mhm.
Some people just think the leaves falling on the ground are just so beautiful. And kids, for instance, love like raking up leaves and jumping in the leaves.
Oh,
Like
that's the best. Yeah, yeah.
when I was a kid, I loved like raking up leaves and jumping in them. It was so much fun. But
Hmm.
like maybe an adult, it's like, ugh, these leaves I have to rake. But for kids, it's like, yay, let's rake the leaves. So it's just, I like these types of stories that remind us of like the simple things to be grateful for.
Mhm.
They don't even think about, oh, the tree is actually providing the shade. I just want to complain about the leaves on the ground, but the tree, if it weren't for the tree, they would have no shade. So it's a great reminder.
I agree, and the shade is just as well a good thing. Uh, I don't know. It's just as well a good thing as fruit, so to speak.
Hmm.
It reminds me. I pulled the line up. Remember the Wizard of Oz when they're picking the apples off the tree, and the
Yeah.
tree takes the apple and slaps him, and he says, "What do you think you're doing?" Or I think she says that, and then he says, "Well, how would you like to have someone come along and pick something off of you?"
Yeah. I actually love that part of The Wizard of Oz. How would you feel if someone just came along and picked something off you?
That's I think that line, that whole section in the story is derivative of Dante's Inferno. In Dante's Inferno, when he's with I don't think Homer's still with him, or sorry, Virgil's still with him, but he's down in there, and there's a point in hell where he is walking around these trees, and he sees somebody peeking out behind the tree, and he can't figure out what they're doing, and finally realizes that those are the people that are being punished for being idle, and so they're in hell now, and they're actually trees. And so he rips the
Oh,
branch off a tree and it screams, and he realizes that's a human.
oh wow.
Yeah, so I think it's well, very twisted, but interesting. It's very similar, the exact same type of scene as the Wizard of Oz. They're pulling
Yeah.
something off a tree. He
I
pulls a
wonder if
branch
that's where
off.
it comes from.
I think I would have to think it would, but that would be kind of lazy on my part without having researched it. But Dante's Inferno was very popular.
Yeah.
So, and this one's a 1939. Wizard of Oz. The book was written before that by gosh, I'm trying to remember that guy's name. I read every one of his books. He's really good. The second Wizard of Oz, or the Wizard of Oz is the second book. The first one is the one where Oz is actually an evil guy. But shoot, yeah, I don't know. Maybe
Speaking of the Wizard of Oz, comment if you're really excited about Wicked, the upcoming movie musical. I'm really excited just because I've seen the musical multiple times and I think it's a really great story. And it's not just for kids. Like there's a lot of like deeper philosophy there. So
I'll
I'm
be
excited about Wicked. Anyone else excited about Wicked? I have a feeling that the actual musical might be like the live musical might probably be a little bit better than the movie adaptation because sometimes the movie adaptation just doesn't translate as well. But I'm very excited. I know all the Wicked songs.
What is the Wicked based on?
So it's based on the books. It's
Wicked, but Wicked is. I mean, that's it's its own thing, or it's
it's
part of
based
Wizard
on
of
the
Oz.
Wizard of Oz. Yeah. It's based on
Oh,
the
I mean, which
But
though? I mean, I
it's
don't.
the it's basically the story of Alphaba, the wicked how the Wicked Witch of the West became the Wicked Witch of the West. So it's sort of like those stories about like like the three little pigs and then you hear like the big bad wolf's perspective.
Mhm.
So it's sort of in that genre where yes, in The Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch is considered the villain, but maybe she's just misunderstood.
That's
So,
there's Beowulf. Somebody came along later and wrote the book Grendel, and it's from
mhm.
Grendel's perspective. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty good. Actually, yeah, I like that better than I did Beowulf. His grip strength wasn't a good enough thing. Wasn't enough to make it interesting. But yeah, Grendel's story is really good. It's been a long time since I read it, but yeah, Grendel was a cool character.
Yeah, I
Um,
like those types of stories where it's like a traditional story, a lot of people know, but then
mhm.
you're getting insight into the villain and maybe you
Your
start
anti-hero. Anti-hero.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you start to sympathize more with the villain. Same thing as like the Joker movies. We start to sympathize with Joker, you know. Um, I like those
Yeah,
types of stories.
nothing wrong with that. But I mean, it's like the Joker as an example. I mean, he's existing within Gotham, and Gotham isn't. it isn't, I mean, that isn't a fair environment. That isn't like that's the just environment that if he just towed the line correctly, he would be a good person. Batman's not a good person. I mean, they're not,
Yeah.
he's breaking the law to enforce it. So, I mean, the whole thing's vigilantism. It's just which side you happen to be on, the person being stolen from or stolen for. Yeah, it's a very weird world. But yeah, the Joker isn't pure evil any more than the Joker would be chaotic evil, whereas Batman would be chaotic good, but they're both, it's all chaos. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Harvey Dent is the correct one. He's the only one that's, yeah.
Do
But
you want to
anyway,
read the next
sure.
one?
Yes, I think the next one is The Owl and the Grasshopper.
Yeah. So if you
Okay.
want to be the owl, I'll be the grasshopper, and you can read
These are odd things that you're choosing.
the narration.
Oh, I love owls, by the way. I love the fact that they spin their head all the way around. I think that's great.
Yes, I
Um,
love owls myself. I've always found them to be fascinating creatures.
do you know what Minerva? Do you know Minerva?
No.
It's old. It's from the Greek and the Romans. People will make the reference in old literature. Will they'll say when Minerva flies, which Minerva flies at dusk and dawn. But
Oh,
Minerva is essentially a derivative of um, who's the goddess of love and beauty and wisdom, Athena. But yeah, Minerva is this
Aphrodite.
Aphrodite's goddess of beauty. I thought love and wisdom. Shit, it's been so long. But anyway, Minerva is the owl that flies at dawn and dusk. Like
Got it.
imagine the sun is setting and this owl is kind of tracing the environment behind us, and kind of almost as if she's making sure the environment is suited, is kind of keeping things in check, because that's what the gods did. They made sure that everything was going as planned. They
I
kind of
see.
kept the levers and a switch is pulled. Anyways, whenever I see owls, I always think of Minerva. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pretty cool creature. Okay, so I'm reading this.
Sure.
Good. Okay. The Owl and the Grasshopper. And you're the grasshopper. Okay. The Owl and the Grasshopper. The owl always takes her sleep during the day. Then, after sundown, when the rosy light fades from the sky and the shadows rise slowly through the wood, out she comes, ruffling and blinking from the old hollow tree. Now, her weird hoo, 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 hoo echoes through the quiet wood, and she begins her hunt for the bugs and beetles, frogs and mice she likes so well to eat. Now there was a certain old owl who had become very cross and hard to please as she grew older, especially if anything disturbed her daily slumbers. One warm summer afternoon, as she dozed away in her den in the old oak tree, a grasshopper nearly began a joyous but very rapsy song. Out popped the old owl's head from the opening in the tree that served her both for door and for window.
Aren't you the owl?
Oh, shoot. Not you, the grasshopper
I'll be
speaking.
the owl. Get away from here, sir, she said to the grasshopper. Have
Oh,
you
shoot.
manners? You should at least respect my age and leave me to sleep in quiet.
But the grasshopper answered saucily that he had as much right to his place in the sun as the owl had to her place in the old oak. Then he struck up a louder and still more rasping tone. The wise old owl knew quite well that it would do no good to argue with the grasshopper, nor with anybody else for that matter. Besides, her eyes were not sharp enough by day to permit her to punish the grasshopper as he deserved. So she laid aside all hard words and spoke very kindly to him.
Well, sir, she said, if I must stay awake, I am going to settle right down to enjoy your singing. Now that I think of it, I have a wonderful wine here, sent me from Olympus, of which I am told Apollo drinks before he sings to the high gods. Please come up and taste the delicious drink with me. I know it will make you sing like Apollo himself.
The foolish grasshopper was taken in by the owl's flattering words, Up he jumped to the owl's den, but as soon as he was near enough to the old owl could see him clearly, she pounced upon him and ate him up.
Wow. So arrogance and thoughtlessness can have serious consequences. That one's
What's
kind of
that?
a funny one.
Flattery is not a proof of admiration. Do not flatter. Flattery throw you off your guard
Not let
against enemies.
flattery throw you off your guard against an enemy. So you shouldn't be swayed just because someone's flattering you. That doesn't mean you should let them throw you off. And it's sort of this one sort of reminds me of the wolf and the heron story, because it's sort of like, oh, you can't trust everyone kind of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
especially those that are arrogant. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I do kind of like the themes of
It's cute. It's cute. Yeah,
yeah,
I
patience,
like it.
wisdom, arrogance. It's a cautionary tale.
Don't trust that owl. When you were in school, did you dissect the owl pellet? Did you do that?
No, I did dissect frogs though.
Huh, all right. The owl pellet is the thing that the owls eat, and then the stuff they throw it up later. And
Mm,
it's this whole big mass of just a bunch of dead animals. And I
yeah.
imagine the grasshopper was in there singing. And but
Yeah.
shoot, yeah, it's not a bad story. I'll take it. I'll take it. What do you
You
think?
love that one?
I'll take it. It's cute. She's essentially kind of, but that's I remember years ago when I was in college, there was a guy who was playing his music too loud. He would play this Indian music, and he would sit out on the hill and meditate. But he played the music real loud, and everybody in the apartment hated it. And so everybody screamed at him, tried to get him to fix it. But the way that this one guy fixed him is he said, "Hey, I like that. Can you turn it up so I can hear it?" The guy turned it up, and then he called the police.
Oh.
And so it's almost the exact same thing, because the police showed
Yeah.
up and they're like, "Why is that so loud?" These people are
Yeah.
complaining, so they nicked him for that. That's that's a cute example of that story.
That is
Um,
very much like a parallel for sure. I'm trying to think of a parallel in my life where I've been the grasshopper, or trying to think if I've ever behaved like the owl. Comment if you're watching, comment and let us know if you've ever felt like the grasshopper. Like, who can you relate to more? The grasshopper or the owl? Hopefully not the owl, because that's not nice. But or the wolf or the
I mean,
heron.
the owl's got to eat, so what are you gonna do?
That's
I
true.
honestly, if I had to pick the animals, the grasshopper, they played beautiful music in the night, but I'd take the owl over that. If I had to pick the animal, I'd take the owl.
You mean like if you could be one of the animals, you'd prefer to be the owl?
That, or if I had to pick between the animals, meaning one was going to go, the way of
Oh,
the
with you?
dodo. Yeah,
Oh, as like a
I would
pet?
take it. No, that meaning it was going to die off. Like if I had to choose one to keep and one
Oh,
to,
to keep
to
around.
lose, yeah, I would
I
choose
got
the owl over the grasshopper.
you.
Have
I
you
don't
ever seen
know.
that? Yeah. What's that?
I mean, I think grasshoppers are useful creatures too, but
Sure.
they have their place in the ecosystem.
Well, they all do. I mean, as do
Mhm.
we. But if I had to pick, I would definitely take the owl over it.
I'm trying to think
Oh.
of a time in my life where I felt sort of like the grasshopper, where I felt like someone fooled me into I guess the only thing I can relate recently is just trusting producers in the film industry who
Mhm.
pretend to have connections that they don't really have, who pretend that they actually care about the craft of storytelling when really they're trying to actually use you to make money, or they're just trying to kind of take your idea and take credit for it. So
Yeah.
I definitely feel like there's some producers in the film industry that are like owls, and I've been the grasshopper.
I I I can think of when I was a kid, an example where I was the grasshopper. I remember swinging on the swings on the playground, and there was a limited number of swings, so not everybody got to. And a kid came along and watched me swinging, and he said, "Oh, you're really good at that." because you do the thing where you tuck your feet when you go
Yeah.
backwards and kick them out. And he said, "You're really good at it. I bet you can't jump." And he goaded me into it. Well, I jumped and he took the swing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I still remember that story, but yeah,
Yeah.
I was the grasshopper. He would have been the owl in that situation, which, by the way, if there are any kids watching, that is a great way to get the swing. Anyway, do you want to read another one or no?
Well, I have a feeling my computer might do an automatic restart here.
We're pretty far into the day. I mean, we're at
Yeah.
79 minutes. That's a good amount of time. We can call it if you want. That's fine with me.
Yeah, but if you are watching before we go, if you want to share a comment, let us know at a point in your life when you felt like the grasshopper. I'm also curious, what is your favorite Aesop's fable? Either one that we read and talked about today or one that we didn't read. And if there are any children's stories you'd love to revisit with us and kind of go down that nostalgic lane, comment, let us know. We'd be happy to read them and revisit them. And sometimes it's fun to read children's stories that you haven't read in a long time because you can see them in a new light when you're
Yeah.
an adult.
Nostalgia is awesome. It has no age to it. So yeah, when you
Yes.
read something and it makes you feel like a kid again, or it just makes you think like a kid again for a second. I don't know. There's something about that though, but there's something about being able to reach back and touch the past like that. So any story you can think of that you remember as a kid, maybe you remember it differently. It doesn't matter. But yeah, anything you can think of, please bring
I
it.
will say, Where the Wild Things Are, my memory of experiencing it when I was a kid was a lot scarier. Like I remember being told that story and I remember the pictures looking kind of scary when I was a kid. But now I look at them and I'm like, well, that's silly.
Yeah.
But so that's one difference. But I also think the morals are a little more clear when you're an adult. The
Mhm.
morals tend to be a little more obvious. The lessons tend to be a little more apparent and carefully crafted.
They
Uh,
might, I mean, they could be, or maybe just your morals have more solidified for yourself, and so it's easier for you to identify them in the story. Meaning, there
mhm.
might as a child, you don't necessarily know what's right and wrong. You're being taught that,
Mhm.
which is nothing wrong with that. That's a cool thing that parents give children is that they give them a guidepost, a way to go. And if they're good parents, they let you discover a lot of that on your own. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, if you don't find it on your own, then you won't necessarily appreciate it when you found it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so yeah, self-discovery is a great thing for kids. Yeah. But again, like I say, we're cutting out, but if any kids are watching or anybody, it can be adults too, go to the library. The library it's every answer to every question you can imagine. It's in that library and it's not no one, if you go on the line, you try to find a TV show, whatever, it's going to be somebody else talking at you. You can go to the library and it's unfettered. You get that information unfiltered brought to you. You can make your own decisions. It makes you a unique person, and uniqueness is it's an endangered species to be unique, and uniqueness is amazing. You have to have that because there's not a lot of unique people anymore.
I
Yeah.
agree. I concur. Do you have a favorite Aesop's fable of the ones we read today?
The one where they were going to bell the cat was cute. I'll take
You
that.
like that one?
Yeah, I'll take that one. That one was cute. That was I'm looking through them. That one or the one with the lion that got cut from the feathers for the mouse, because that was a little better. The crane one I'm still a little bit upset about because I don't think you should teach somebody that helping if I help somebody who's a bad person and they go off and they continue to be bad, it has nothing to do with me doing it. I
Yeah.
think that you're still a good person. You still did a good deed. Um, that's you can always feed the hungry. It doesn't mean when you feed them that they're going to go do what you want them to do. They're just not going to be hungry anymore. That's the good deed. So I don't know, but
Yeah,
belling a
so
cat or the
you're sort of saying that like you shouldn't necessarily do a good deed just to get something in return, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's foul to give a gift and put who it's from. You put who it's to, but if you put who it's from, then you're asking for a reward. Then that's not good.
Or
That's making
maybe giving a gift is your love language and you just want the person to know that you love them. There's nothing wrong with
no,
that.
no. I get you, but I'm just saying that it's to expect a reward as a result. That's why people put to on a gift, but they put from as well. But if you really are if the main concern is that they get the gift and they're happy as a result of it, then it shouldn't matter who give it to them. And that's the from category seems to belie that in my mind. But
Well, I
yeah.
understand what you're saying, but I don't think there's anything wrong with giving a gift and letting someone know I'm the one who gave you that gift because I want you to know I care. And I'm here for you and I love you. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with like writing who it's from. But
You
what
see
you're saying,
vanity in that? You see vanity in that?
I mean, I see vanity in everything, but
Right.
I just don't think there's anything ethically wrong with that.
No, not
Um,
ethically. Just it's a moral position. But yeah, I get you.
But I think what you're saying is like expecting someone to, reciprocate everything 100%. That's not really, that's definitely not a selfless thing. Like if you're giving something only because you want something in return, then
Mhm.
definitely not selfless. That's more selfish. So,
Yes, 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 yes.
but I
It's
also
those
like,
unrequited love.
yeah, and for somebody who believes in fairness though and balance, um, I feel like a lot of people, like, if they're constantly giving, if you believe in like, okay, what's fair, what's balanced, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with having some level of like, okay, well, if this person cares, they might be for me. Just like, the mouse was there for
Mhm.
the lion. So
I agree with, I don't think fair and balanced are synonymous words, but I get what you're saying. I totally get you. But anyway, yeah.
well, I'm just saying a balance in terms of like reciprocal relationships.
No, I get you. I get you. I'm just saying that I like fair is what is appropriate, whereas balanced means that you're going against what's appropriate and you're making sure everybody gets an even keel. You know what I mean?
I
Like
mean,
fair is what
you
anyway, it doesn't
to me they're
what
very related in this context, but yes, and I'm not being like precise. I'm not saying like I'm not saying like balance is the exact same thing as fairness, but to me they're very related in this context.
I don't know. I get them as being antonyms,
I definitely
but
don't
I
think
get
they're
you.
antonyms. They're related. They
No, I
don't they
just
don't mean the
no.
exact same thing, but they don't mean the opposite thing.
I say the opposite. Honestly, I do. But I mean, it's another time, another discussion. Yeah, I get you.
But we'll
I
talk
get
about
you.
that
That's
for the
another thing.
next one.
Yeah. But then what are we doing next? Do we know what we're doing next, or have we decided
We'll
that yet?
just pay attention to our community board, and I will post our next planned podcast. So just if you enjoyed this one, just pay attention to our community posts, and I'll post when the next one's coming. If there are any children's stories you'd like us to read and discuss, let us know. And if you have any more thoughts about these fables, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And then if you know any children's parents, anyone you think who might enjoy this content, please share it and we
Please,
can build a community. So,
let's do that.
all right. Any final thoughts before we close?
No, it was fun. I like Aesop's Fables. I think they're light, they're easy. I think I honestly I think there's more discussion around them than the story itself, which makes them awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something that if somebody wanted to read and have a discussion with their kids, it might spirit a conversation that would far surpass in length and depth than the story itself, which makes it amazing art. These stories are thousands of years old, and they're still spiriting discussions. We're
Mm-hmm.
having that now. So
Yes.
that's what makes art great. That's what makes art genius because it lasts. So I like them. I like these. The Where the Wild Things Are. I just remember when I was a kid. And that story will probably be around long after we are gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's not going away.
The
Well,
floor
thank you
will
so much
always
for
be lava.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining Mopar and Sean and Daniel and anyone else. If you think of anything else you'd like to share, just comment below and we'll keep the conversation going. Otherwise, until next time, take care, everyone.
Yay.
Your imagination fresh. Keep reading.